Good morning. Happy frigid December. Well, outside is miserably cold and covered in snow, but inside my house, as hopefully yours, is a comfortable 69 degrees. And nowadays, most of our heating systems operate very cleanly with minimal attention. But not too long ago, heating systems were much more labor intensive and much dirtier. In the first part of the 20th century, buildings were heated using mostly coal, and you had to shovel it in to your boiler or your furnace, and then you had to deal with the ash and the soot. And early central vac systems made a point to mention that they could be used to clean out those soot deposits from your boiler tubes. Here's a mention in this Spencer ad from the late 1920s, maybe early 30s, cleaning boiler tubes, and as illustrated here. So in this dark grainy photograph, you can see this is the boiler, and the operator, or the fireman as he was called, is using a hose with a tool and applying it to each one of those boiler tubes to clean the buildup off. Here's another one. It says, it saves in the boiler room by cleaning the boiler tubes and floor. Often the resulting economy pays the operating expenses of the system. You see that soot buildup in your boiler tubes reduced the efficiency, and less of that burning coal heat got transferred into the water. Here's another showing another description of cleaning the boiler room, but in this one you can see a diagram showing the vacuum producer, the turbine, the primary separator, which is where the dirt from the building in general would go cleaning, and this would be the soot separator, and this is where the soot removed from the boiler would get separated out, because all these large quantities of fine dust, they figured out should be separated out first rather than going through the primary cyclonic separator, because if it all went straight into here, then enough of a quantity of it would make its way through, past the baffle, through the impellers, and be blown out the roof. And of course that's not great for the turbine either. Here's a later piece of literature from the 50s referencing boiler cleaning, showing a portable machine. So picture a factory where you have a portable vacuum and you take it around to clean up around machinery, etc. And then in this application, it's connected to a stationary soot separator. So if you didn't have vacuum piping throughout your whole building, you could have this in the boiler room. You could have a pipe going up to inlets next to the boilers, and then when you wanted to do that cleaning operation, you'd take your portable machine, you'd wheel it down here, connect it to the top of your soot separator, and you'd have a little mini central vacuum. Here's another one. And another mention of boiler room. I printed these off that made specific mention of boiler cleaning. Draws soot of the boiler tubes, often saving the whole cost of operation in this one item alone. So again, they're stressing that the savings in coal will help you pay to run the system to clean your building. This is a theater advertisement. This would have been in a theater trade publication. And again, special vacuum tools clean the boiler tubes, reducing fuel costs. In fact, the entire boiler room can be kept as clean as any other part of the building. And this was in a day where the boiler room was going to be a perpetually filthy part of the building. So that was kind of a big deal. Nowadays, if you go in a building's boiler room or mechanical room, it's usually well lit and spotless, but they're not burning coal anymore, so it's easier to keep it that way. There's another one, I think. Okay, here's a better picture of that scene showing the hose connected to the inlet valve between two boilers, and you can see the operator has a handle there, and this also shows a separator back here. And in this publication, you can see an actual photograph, not a drawing, of a mechanical area showing the vacuum producer and the separator. And if you look closely, you see that part and this with the little handles coming off. That is your boiler cleaning wand. So they would take that, hook it to the hose, connect it, and no doubt just out of view of this photo was the boiler or boilers themselves. Now even today, I don't think anybody, well, most of your electricity is still generated by coal-fired power plants, but I don't think anybody's heating their house or building with coal anymore. However, in the Northeast, many people still heat with oil. And if you have an oil furnace or an oil-fired boiler, you still need to have that serviced and have the soot cleaned out of it. And anybody who watches Steve Lavamonier's plumbing and heating videos will have seen the ones where he takes the little Mastercraft shop vac, the soot master, and takes apart somebody's boiler and breaks the soot up and vacuums it out of there. So that is a regular maintenance item. And it would have been even worse with coal. So hence the important selling point of having a system in your building that would allow you to conveniently clean your boilers. I like this diagram here showing the system with the separator and the vacuum producer, the exhauster. And there's the operator again, the fireman, cleaning the boiler tubes. Here's a bit from my 100 something unusual uses for Spencer, showing another depiction of the pipe drop with the hose and the wand. Soot in the tubes of return tubular or sectional boilers can reduce the boiler efficiency as much as 20%. And this is from the 50s because they were talking about vacuum slots. So even as natural gas heating plants were rapidly replacing the old coal-fired boilers, they still thought it worthwhile to mention. I love this advertisement. All of these New York City skyscrapers had giant Spencer systems in them to clean the buildings. And this one mentions radiators, filters, and boilers easily cleaned, etc., etc. There's another one, same idea. So these would have been called fire tube boilers. And so here's another ad or a publication showing the separators, the boiler, and then two valves right next to the boiler, and that was for that same purpose. Before I come to the next piece of literature, I'll do my crude doodle. I don't know anything about boilers, but what I do know is in a fire tube boiler, so you have this, the enclosure, the housing of the boiler, this big cylinder, and inside it, going from front to back, you're looking at the front of the thing, by the way, going from front to the back are all these little tubes. And there is such a thing as a water tube boiler where the fire is in this part and the water flows through the tubes. But more common is what you call a fire tube boiler. And in that design, all of these tubes are where the fire goes through from the burning fuel, the coal, and these tubes get hot and heat up the water. So this is a big heat exchanger. How do you make water and fire mix when they don't like each other? Well, you have the water in one part and the fire in the other. So whatever fuel you're burning, the deposits go on the inside of these tubes, and therefore you see, not in this one, but okay, let's go to the next. Recently on eBay, I found a Spencer brochure specifically talking about boiler cleaning, not as part of just a generic advertisement for their systems, but here we go. Here's a nice photograph of a guy cleaning some mammoth boilers. I mean, if he's 5 feet tall, those boilers have to be 12, 14 feet tall. It's quite something. And in fact, in that abandoned school video, the Urbex video that I did, they have the original Kiwani boilers still in the building, because even though they had new boilers put in years ago, that was just not worth trying to dismantle these beasts. I mean, these were put in before the rest of the building was constructed by necessity. So anyway, back to the brochure. This was distributed by the Los Angeles Spencer agency, Frederick D. Zemplin. And I want to say this dates from probably 1917, 18, 19, somewhere in there. It's pre-1920. They were still offering a vertical turbine as well as a horizontal. And they're selling against the idea of using steam jets to clean your boiler tubes. You had to do it some way. And apparently another method was to use steam from the boiler itself. I'm picturing like a big hose, but instead of water, you would just you'd literally steam clean the tubes. And this talks about how that would cause tube deterioration or scale formation. So this is cleaning the tubes of a battery of 250 horsepower return tubular boilers. In addition to the destructive action on the tubes and the rapid scale formation so frequently caused by steam blowing, there is the further objection of the large scattering of dust and soot throughout the boiler room during the blowing operation. So as much as I kind of bemoan the fact that very few modern buildings have central vacuum systems in them, the world is much cleaner now, and so the need is less apparent for an installed cleaning system. Today, you can, in a school, for example, that has no carpeting, they may not have a vacuum cleaner at all. They might just be dust mopping the whole place. Anyway, the alternate method of brushing the tubes is preferable to steam blowing, but because of the time required and the amount of labor involved in the brushing operation, it is seldom done oftener than once or twice a fortnight. I love old-timey language here. Oftener, fortnight. A covering of 1/16 inch of soot over the heating surface will affect a fuel loss of approximately 20%. An accumulation of 1/8 to 1/4 inch of material in the tubes is common after only 1 day's operation of a boiler. So here's a picture of a guy cleaning the back of the boiler using a big heavy-duty hose connected to a vacuum line. It is entirely practicable to clean all the tubes of a 250 horsepower tubular boiler containing 136 3.5 inch tubes in 10 minutes, and smaller boilers in a proportionately less time. A boiler plant of 1,000 horsepower can easily be cleaned in 1 hour. So if you look, this guy's cleaning a battery of 250 horsepower boilers, and it looks like there's 4 of them there, so that's 1,000 horsepower worth of heating capacity. And again, I mentioned I don't know anything about boilers, but clearly they're rated in horsepower. I do know that cooling machinery is rated in tons, and that originally had something to do with tons of ice needed for something, and and that's all I know. So here's a guy, a person after my own heart, up there vacuuming the top of their boiler. I like you. It is equally desirable. So this again, like they're easing you into the proposition of, hey, this is a nice thing to have for other reasons too, because this is boiler cleaning. And then on page 4 of the brochure, they talk about it is equally desirable and simple to provide an outlet at a convenient point to permit cleaning of the tops of the boiler settings, walls cleaning, and in fact, the entire boiler room. And of course, by that time, the hope is that somebody will say, aha, why couldn't we use this elsewhere in the building? Suddenly, you have your building piped for a central vacuum. This is talking about the cost savings. And a 10-year period cost savings aggregating $12,000. And this was at a point where that $12,000 is like, gosh, would it be hundreds of thousands of dollars adjusted for today's money. So even though the vacuum system cost you $2,000, this was making the point that it would pay for itself. Thus, we claim that no other apparatus in the boiler room, or in fact the entire plant, will so quickly pay its initial cost as a Spencer boiler cleaning equipment. That's another turn of phrase, as a Spencer boiler cleaning equipment. And in fact, if you'll recall, the badges on some of my early Spencer machines say manufacturers of vacuum cleaning equipments. Usually you don't hear equipments used in plural to mean a singular. Equipment means just like stuff, at least now. It is in most cases decidedly advantageous to also equip the entire establishment for vacuum cleaning, as the added investment is comparatively small, and in most plants the time of employees engaged in floor and building cleaning is so greatly reduced that the wage saving will quickly pay for the slightly increased investment, with the added advantage of thorough cleaning and greatly improved sanitation. If I ever hold elected office, heaven forbid, maybe I'll filibuster using Spencer brochures. Anyway, so again, I love these photographs. Cleaning above, I mean, the soot would get everywhere. So this was not a waste of time. This would be a sensible thing. And this is cool, showing the cleaning of a small household size boiler in a house that would have also been equipped with a Spencer vacuum, like some of the ones that I have in my collection. So here's the last page. Spencer multi-stage wide clearance steel turbine vacuum producers are in daily successful operation in industrial establishments of all description. They are equally efficient in general cleaning, boiler cleaning, elevating and conveying various materials, superseding in many cases the older and less efficient types of transmission machinery with their accompanying rapid depreciation, noise, wear, friction, and frequent breakage. And here we are. Ensure large fuel savings, rapid and thorough dry cleaning and elimination of dust, all material placed at any desired distant point, no rehandling, no tube corrosion, pitting, or scale formation. Call and order yours today. That's it for me. I'm going to put some slippers on. My feet are cold. Happy vacuuming. Stay warm, everybody.